Hi everybody, welcome back. So another video in the series of building my Thunderbike for 2019. So an update on the crank. The crank will be getting picked up on Thursday, so the next video we'll get back to putting the engine back together. So what I'm going to do today is give a clean of all these bits and pieces here, ignoring the brake caliper because we'll do that on another day. So I'm just going to clean this all and get the rear swing arm put back together so it's all ready to go for when we're in a position to complete everything. So what you'll see here is a very messy setup. So we've got the rear hub, the shock linkage, the adjustment arm. The original sprocket sits here because I need this carrier, but I've got a Renthal mounting plate with a 520 Renthal, the brake caliper carrier plate, and then a nicely re-powder coated swing arm in here. Okay, let's start getting some of these bits and pieces cleaned. Everything laid out, so I just had to get a few more bits and pieces. So lovely sparkly newly powder coated swing arm, cleaned up the old chain guards to use, the cush drives. Bit you've got to be careful about is make sure that none of the rubber is coming away from the metal, and that tends to be a common failure point. And what you'll have on some of the better drives is this little lip, and that stops it sort of pushing back and grinding away the chain adjustment end of the hub. So this is everything. What I'm going to do is chuck this all together. So there's a few little bits and pieces I'm going to do quickly just before I put this all together. One of them is to free up the nuts at the end of the adjustable arm. They have a tendency to seize, so I'm going to work this through its full range, and then just do things like make sure that we've got clean of any sort of corrosion on the end of the parts. All the nuts and bolts, as you've seen, have all been cleaned. I've put new bearings into the hub, so it's just a case of grease everything up, put everything loosely back in together, because I can't fully torque everything down in the hubs section until we've got a chain on the bike and the engine in. So it's exciting. Let's start putting some chassis stuff together. So first job, let's just free this up and make sure it's good to move. So as you can see, this one was a little bit stiff when it was coming off. I had to use a spanner to take that all the way off. So all I'm going to do now is just give everything a little bit of a clean out, just to get rid of any sort of corrosion, and then put a little bit of copper grease on these so that I can ensure that they stay free to turn, so that it's easy to make adjustments to the track. So let's just quickly clean those off. So that's that back together. Just remember when you're putting this together or taking it apart that there's a left hand thread and a right hand thread. So righty tighty, lefty loosey doesn't work at both ends. So you need to make sure you're putting it around the right way. I'm just going to leave this in a relatively loose state, and we'll do the geometry settings for the bike once everything is put together. So you can sort of pre-measure this before you put it on, and there's a lot of information available on the internet around lengths to have this on, but I tend to like to do the bike measurements actually with the bike, rather than doing it and presetting it and sitting it on. Okay, so that's that done. Now is put the hub together. So first thing we need to do is put it into the swing arm. So I've just put a little bit of light grease on there so that we can slide this little bad boy in. And then it's a case of just putting it into a position to hold it all together while we do that. So the adjustment arm needs to be on the outside here, just remember that. In fact, actually, let's put a little bit of additional grease around the actual arm itself, on the actual hub itself. Okay, so I've put the swing arm hub pinch bolts in, not torqued down. They're 13mm headed bolt, and they usually go to 35 Newton meters, but I've not touched that as yet because it's just building it up and getting it all loose at the moment. Right, next thing I'm going to do, whilst it's easy to work on, is get the chain guards in. One that goes on top and then one that goes underneath. Let's just stick them in quickly. So first step, we need to lock the hub in place. So guide nut needs to go in. So a little bit of locking compound, and turn that in. So this gets done up to 33 Newton meters. Okay, so to put this together, one ring, now that's in, you just need to check all the way round that that circlip is located properly and that we've got a nice clear line with no distortion around the hub. which looks good. Do now a little bit of grease on here. See? Now what we need to do is get the sprocket carrier ready to fit. So this piece goes on there, but what I need to do here first is just put all of these cush drives in place. Do that quickly. Small amount of grease just so it's easy to disassemble in the future. Just stop any of that corrosion really making a mess. Okay, so we now need to torque these cush drives down to 48 Newton meters. So let's get on and do that. Okay, so now we need to put the sprocket carrier on. So I've just greased the shaft up just so that these teeth are clear. I've got a spacer piece that we just need to push in there, and then just line up teeth. There we go. Grabbing the nut, washer in first, just get the nut. And that's the rear hub assembly built up. So nothing's torqued down as yet. So it's all, well, sorry, tell her. We've torqued the cush drives because we can do those off the bike. I still need to torque the hub bolt, the pinch bolts, and then obviously when we put a wheel on I need to torque those down as well. I also haven't torqued down the sprocket itself. They're just on quickly buzzed on so that I could hold that in place because I'm going to put a different size sprocket on. Okay, so that just moves us to the front end of the swing arm now. So what we're going to do is just prep and clean these bearing areas out and get the bolting ready for when we put the suspension back together. Okay, so let's do that quickly now. Okay, so I've just cleaned out the inside of the swing arm pivot. It tends to get a little bit of corrosion in there, and that is where your swing arm pivot bolt can get stuck, one of the many places, so always worth cleaning that out. Just going to fully load the bearing up again. That's the swing arm ready to go in the bike. So everything is all loosely assembled. We know all the bits are there. The gap here is obviously where the shock goes. So everything's been cleaned, everything's been greased. So we should be good to go on that. What I'm also going to do now is just quickly prepare the top shock pivot. It's got a shaft and then 3 bolts to go in there. I'm just going to give everything a test fit just to make sure everything's good, and obviously lubricate up the bearings so that they're fit and ready to go as well. So let's just do that quickly. Okay, so that's the shock pivot, all just loosely put together. Checked that the all of the screws are free to turn, which is a quite important piece. Last piece that leaves us with is the steering tube. So you can see I've got the old bearing races in there. Yeah, pretty messy on that one. What I'm going to do is quickly just tap these out and then fit some nice shiny tapered bearings in. So let's put everything to one side and do that. Okay, we're going to have to stop this video here. Unfortunately, the bearings that I've had turn up have been supplied the wrong size, so I can't reinsert those at the moment. So what I'll do is I'm just going to get onto the supplier, get a new set of bearings set out, and at the next video we'll pick off from here. So apologies for that, guys. I was hoping to have the frame and swing arm in a state ready to go, so the next video was going to be just putting the engine in. So apologies we didn't make the progress that I was hoping to, but hopefully shortly we'll have this into the frame. We'll have our nice spangly swinging arm attached in as well, and we can start really whacking this bike together. I think the next challenge that will come up after that is the wiring loom, which off this bike was a bit of a mess, unfortunately. So once again, thank you for watching. If you like the video, give us a like down below. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. If you're not a subscriber, really welcome subscribers to the channel. Thanks for now. See you at the next video. Bye.